Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shows, desolate search, peasants, vassals, meat techs. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And of course, I'm trying to improve the sound and the visuals on my presentations. My hat's off to all the subscribers and watchers who brought up these problems. I had hoped that just getting a new camera would solve all the problems, but it didn't. So I've gone back to my old camera and made some adjustments, and I hope this is an improvement. In the meantime, I fired my lighting director, I fired my makeup guy, and I fired my sound guy, and so I'm back to being a one-man operation, and I promise that I will take the resources that I've saved and I will plow them back into content where it belongs in the first place. Kind of content that a useful idiot video watchers have come to expect from me. And so anyway, here we go. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This is an issue that needs to be brought up, and that is this mythological connection between Hamas and ISIS. And it's strictly mythological because the only person that's brought it up and believes in it is Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Israel. But that's enough, because the fact that he can be such a psychopath and such a propagandist and such a history revisionist and so deceptive on a world scale is sometimes mind-boggling to me. So this whole mythology of a Hamas-ISIS connection needs to be destroyed right now, because it's actually a very important integral part of this whole story to realize the differences between Hamas and ISIS. It has a lot to say about what's going on in that region, and so these kinds of distortions really do not help anybody. So first of all, let's look at Hamas and ISIS. First of all, Hamas is a modern offshoot of a at least 75-year-old resistance movement by the Palestinians. And even though its roots do not stretch all the way back those 75 years, that's where the roots come from. It's domestic resistance against foreign colonial occupation. I mean, that's the bottom line. People can quibble over that all they want, but that's essentially what it is. Whereas ISIS, certainly they resist foreign occupation, but they're basically toppling their own brother Muslim governments in the region that they consider corrupt and not religious enough. And that brings up another difference between Hamas and ISIS. Hamas is certainly relatively secular. The religious aspect of it is only incidental, whereas with ISIS, at least it's purported to be their main thrust. And of course, that's arguable. I think ISIS is more about power than religion, and they use religion like so many in the past and in the future will do, and the present, of course, they will use religion for a power mechanism. And so anyway, a big difference between Hamas and ISIS, and then the fact that ISIS has a global scale. They want to have franchises around the world, and they want to carry out attacks on foreign country and foreign soil. Hamas does not. Hamas has no plans for any kind of world domination or anything outside of trying to hold on what little land they have left in Palestine/Israel. So anyway, a huge difference, and I'm sure there's lots of things I'm overlooking at the present. But let's get down to the more recent events that just bear out what I'm saying, and show that there's no love between ISIS and Hamas. And that's the fact that there's now a feud going on and threats being thrown back and forth. Last July 2015, ISIS threatened to topple Hamas in Gaza and said that they are not religiously strict enough, which is true. There's no Sharia law in Gaza, and one of those differences I pointed out. And you got to love the language that ISIS uses. They say, quote, the tyrants of Hamas, unquote, and that, quote, you will be overrun by our creeping multitudes, unquote. I don't think anything could be more threatening than saying that you are going to be overrun by creeping multitudes. I find that pretty intimidating. But anyway, so like I say, of course, Israel says ISIS and Hamas are the same, and they're not. They hate each other. And then on the other side of that coin, we have Hamas working to stamp ISIS out in Gaza And there are Wahhabis and there are Salafists in Gaza, and they have gravitated towards ISIS and have created a burgeoning ISIS movement there. And Hamas is going to nip that in the bud. I guess they've already destroyed an ISIS mosque and made 30 arrests of different members. I would assume there could be anywhere from a few hundred to a few thousand members of ISIS in Gaza. I would imagine hundreds. But interesting to see this development, and it'll be interesting to see if we have any sort of ISIS attacks within Gaza, and more rhetoric. And in point in fact, Hamas apparently, just like everyone else in the region, except for Turkey, of course, has had to increase checkpoints and security to make sure they are not infiltrated by ISIS, and there will not be attacks there. And of course, it gets more complicated in that region, because if we have any kind of ISIS attacks in the region, it's only going to complicate things between the Israelis and the Palestinians, figuring out who's who. So it'll be something to watch. But anyway, there we have it. Hamas and ISIS. There's no love lost there. There's no friendship, and in fact, the rhetoric is heating up, and we could see some confrontations, and that'll just make this whole scenario in the Middle East all the more interesting and complicated than it already is. So anyway, Benjamin Netanyahu, can the bullshit, okay? I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.